The wrap-up for this Halloween course, psychoeducational process on identifying the essence of the addiction process and the things that are helpful in treating it. We've talked about the early life trauma, the core myth, the short circuit in the brain causing flashbacks, the flashbacks resulting in rage attacks or panic attacks, and the 13th step program where we actually bring in a situation where oxytocin is released when the people in the group hug each other, reducing isolation and improving self-esteem, and thereby negating the core myth. And that is the treatment modality with the Suboxone. We also use antidepressants, mood stabilizers, and benzodiazepines because post-traumatic stress disorder responds well to benzodiazepines with the Suboxone. I want to mention that the field as a whole now does not really approve of the use of benzodiazepines because they are very dangerous when they're added to methadone, and the experience with the methadone programs is don't use benzodiazepines, people will get killed. So when you're using Suboxone, that carryover has inhibited the treatment of addiction with Suboxone because it basically has a bad feel to it for most treating physicians. But we find that the benzos, the antidepressants, the mood stabilizers, and medications such as Abilify, which work on another set of receptors, is very useful and very successful. So in essence, we see opiate addiction as a disease of neuroreceptors. It's a brain receptor disease. And the receptors involved are the mu receptors, which the opiates hit, serotonin, damage to those receptors which have to do with causing depression, dopamine, which have to do with the reward centers, and addiction per se. Those receptors are damaged. Noradrenaline, those receptors are damaged and treated by antidepressants such as Cymbalta and Effexor. And the GABA receptors, which the benzodiazepines ameliorate. So what we see is a cluster of receptors, of which there are 150, of which we only know a few, but we can see the effects of those damaged receptors on these individuals with the opiate addiction. Receptors were damaged, number one, by the chemical of the opiates themselves, and number two, by the early life trauma, which affected the receptors, particularly the serotonin receptors, resulting in depression. And we talked about oxytocin, which is really still a mystery zone. So we're treating it as a receptor disease, we're treating it as a PTSD, and it needs a combined approach, and each individual has to be thoroughly evaluated, and his situation has to be figured out. So join us and with more videos by tuning into our email address, and we will send you other videos as we develop them. And thanks for tuning in, and this has been a Halloween show, and hope you enjoyed the antics.